Hello, and welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast dedicated to igniting your entrepreneurial spirit and empowering you to conquer new horizons. In this podcast, we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs on their journey to success through some amazingly insightful and expansive conversations. These episodes thrive on thought-provoking chats where our guests fearlessly explore their path to success, sharing their experiences, failures, and triumphs. No topic is off limits as we deep dive into the talked about and not so talked about pieces it takes to build a business, overcome limiting beliefs, deal with personal struggles, and everything in between that shapes our lives and our businesses. I'm your host, Kat Polsinelli, creator and founder at The Lotus Effect, where we believe that success is not just about strategies and tactics, it's about cultivating a powerful mindset and creating customized business operations that align with you and your true purpose. Whether it's mastering time management, improving productivity, enhancing leadership skills, or simply fostering a growth-oriented mindset, we'll provide you with the tools and strategies to flourish in both your business and personal life. I'm so excited to have you join us today in this episode, so get ready to feel empowered and inspired as we learn together and from one another on how to rise above challenges, break through limitations, and unlock our full potential. Let's dive in. So thank you everybody for joining today. I have Joe Kelley with me, which I'm so excited to bring him in front of you guys today and let you hear his story and talk about what it is that he does. So Joe, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and kind of what got you into it.
Sure. Obviously, my name is Joe Kelley. I'm a former law enforcement officer from Massachusetts. 11 years I did that. My story's a little different than most. I was a high-ranking police officer, K-9, undercover, emergency response team. But during that time, I got injured on the job, and I was actually given a pain prescription, which I probably should have never been given in the first place, but I had to take those pain pills. And the problem as a police officer, I saw a lot of things over the years that normal people don't see, and in situations that normal people don't have to deal with. And anyone can have those types of issues, but as a police officer, what I did was I stuffed that stuff inside. Because as a police officer, you're taught to give the help, not ask for the help.
Yeah.
So I say that because I want to paint a picture. It wasn't just like I was given pain medication and I took it for this. I had a lot of other stuff that was going on. 10 years going into the 11th year of law enforcement, my marriage at the time was very rocky, because of all the stuff that I stuffed inside, but also because I lived in my uniform. To make a decent salary to support my family. That's how I was taught, is work, support the family. And I lived in my uniform, so, me and my wife at the time, we had grown apart, and because of that stuff that I wasn't working on, it came out in like different ways in terms of, how my moods and stuff like that. So I was put on pain pills. I took those pills to get back to work faster because I was never a person to sit on the couch. I was a, collegiate football player, always grew up in a town. I was the big fish, athletic scholarship to school. I've never could sit still ever, so when I took those, it helped me go back to work faster, but it also numbed all that stuff that was going on in the inside. And, having two young kids at the time, I'm working nights. The wife was working the days. I get off shift, got to tend to the kids, being at that age, it was a lot, especially all that internal stuff that I was going through too.
Yeah.
And as I went, as it progressed, I started to depend on that stuff more and more. When I was on something, I was Father of the Year. When I didn't have anything, I was like, here's a bowl of cereal, and the problem with that was that stuff took some of that internal stuff or numbed it. But when I didn't have anything, I felt 10 times worse than I ever felt prior to even taking something. So in my mind, it was just like, I need this. And the progression of that got worse and worse. And we'll get into it because I don't want to go rogue on you. But it basically, that took me to, different places in my life. I ended up losing myself. I ended up losing my family. I ended up losing my freedom,
Mm-hmm.
that career. And I wrote a book that comes out on Monday, which I'm super stoked for, Badge Bars to be on, my full story from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a police officer, high ranking collegiate athlete, a police officer who lost everything, had to go to prison. When I got out of prison after doing 19 months, I had to reinvent myself after being a convicted felon because of the stigma that's put on that. And,
Yeah.
I took everything, and at one point stopped saying why me and started saying why not me. Maybe I had to go through this so my kids never had to go through it. But I adopted that mentality and did a lot of work on myself and fast forward, reinvented myself, moved to Florida, built a multi-million dollar, company, ended up getting out of that a year ago. And then me and my wife went into business together where we own a holistic wellness center, that is cryotherapy, infrared, neurofeedback, a lot of holistic, non-invasive type of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
we also have a training school. We like to call it a university because we both are trainers in NLP, hypnosis, time techniques, EFT, and life coaching. We travel around the country doing a lot of speaking, to talk about not only just my story, because I don't just talk to people that have problems with mental health issues or substance use disorder issues. You
Mm-hmm.
mean I work with a lot of high executive CEOs on improving their bottom line from the NLP sales process model, and
Yeah.
communication skills. So that's the real quick version, though. Obviously, there's a lot in between that.
So many in betweens. I could
Yeah,
go in
yeah,
10 different directions.
I
But
know.
I love that. And I love that you're sharing your story. And though I think the one thing that caught me that I think a lot of people need to hear is you stop saying why me and why not me.
Right.
I think that that's a huge piece for a lot of people to take in their lives, because I think a lot of us have been, most of us, right, have been through some type of trauma, and that's essentially what you went through, right? And I feel like you get to that point in your life where you can either let what you're going through consume you, which decides for you, in my personal opinion, or you can decide that it's happened to you for a reason for you to give back to other people.
Absolutely. I mean, my biggest thing is the mind's such a powerful thing. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you learn in NLP, and we certify other people around the country in it, not just for, to work with other people, but for personal development. I mean, who you surround yourself with, what you watch, what
Mm-hmm.
you listen to. I mean, you are going to be a product of your environment. And, um, a lot of the mindset type of work that I did early on, to get myself to be into who I am today has taken
Mm-hmm.
me further than I could ever imagine. To be able to communicate with people and teach other people, how to use those things to improve their life, improve their relationships, improve, whether it's with their spouse, whether it's with their children, whether it's with their boss, whether it's with their employees. I mean, I know nothing better than, communication, being able to do that, to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah. Definitely agree. And I absolutely love that. And for anyone that doesn't know what NLP is, it's neuro linguistic programming, which is actually a fantastic program that I'm looking at getting into as well, that just helps you understand things in a different perspective. And Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not as into it as you guys are. But I think it's a really great technique, not to only help other people, but it's a great way to help yourself to
Yes.
look at things from a different perspective to help grow your understanding. Like you were saying, again, that why me and then why not me. It's that flip of the switch of how you see yourself and how your thoughts are perceived as they come into your mind.
Yeah, exactly. The short, simple answer for NLP is, some people like to call it the roadmap to the mind. I mean, very simple and very chunked down so people can understand what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've always been a very skeptical type of person whenever taking any type of trainings.
Mm-hmm.
tell you this, being the macho football guy, police officer, and then being very humbled, you mean, and coming out, when I first took the practitioner for NLP, I was like,
Mhm.
I was taking it going in like I need to learn something new. Something needs to change. And I was looking for anything to try to, help me move forward in life. But it got me, and it got me good because I was listening what they had to say, and you do some different things within NLP, and it was like, when's the first time you felt anger? Consciously, I'm like, oh, that's easy. I was 4 years old. I took a candy bar from the store. My grandmother brought me back, embarrassed me. This and that. I was angry, right? No, after doing a 60-second um, like a 60-second model with them. The first time I ever felt anger was when I was coming out of my mother and I was cold. I was blown away because
Wow.
those words would never come out of my mouth ever. And
Hmm.
and for that to come out, it was like, wow, this stuff's really powerful, and it really allows you get to root cause, because a lot of things that we think are bothering us, whether it's anger, sadness, guilt, shame, whatever else, it's typically not what you think it is. It goes back even further. To be able to dig out the root cause changes everything for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I can say that myself, I think that's been a huge thing for me to learn as well, is because like you said, consciously it's very easy to come up with like that first instinctual thing,
Yeah,
or the last thing that you remember that started something. But it's a different thing to really think about it for a little bit longer, or write about it and then realize 10-15 minutes into writing it that there's more into it, that you're like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, I thought I was done with that. I thought I was over with that. That's the same thing as right feelings that come back up with, like you were saying, you kept a lot of things inside that you didn't deal with. And while you thought that you were handling it and you were just shoving it down and it was fine, it eventually came back out.
absolutely. And for especially for first responders, a lot of us stuff things in as it is, but as a first responder, whether you're a fireman, EMT, police officer, this and that, you know, uh, for us, stuffing things in is not just about, for us. The reason why we don't come forward with a lot of it is because we're supposed to be the authority figure in a
Mm.
lot of instances. So if we come forth with that and show some type of weakness, not only does it hinder us, it's like, well, if that guy is dealing with some things, why is he carrying a gun? Or if that person is dealing with this, man or woman, when it comes time for promotion, they're going to be like, oh, that guy's got issues.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff is fear based? It was like when I went through my stuff, I had the chief of police who sat down with me towards the end of my career, and he was a good friend of mine, but it's a chief of police as well. He sat down and he goes, Joe, we've heard that some things are going on. If you need help, we'll
Hmm.
get you some help. The only thing that I heard back then with that mentality, and excuse my language, was tell me everything that you know so I can fire your ass. That's all
Yeah.
I heard, because it was a fear of losing my identity, who I was, my career, it all. And, little did I know I was going to lose it anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Now, do you feel like you can take that mentality and that fear based and use it in business as well? Like when you were building your business, you and your wife, do you feel like you had to, because I know for me, and I know a lot of people that I've worked with, we all have that fear, right, of going into something that's unknown, or the fear of not being that authority, right? Whether it's in your business, your personal life, whatever the case may be. So do you feel like going into that, you have to learn how to be okay with that fear so that you can shed to continue to grow?
Yes. My wife always says it's like when you're going through stuff, that's where the growth comes from. For me, I don't just coach people, and I don't just, tell people, hey, do this and do that. I actually do it myself. I have my own coach, whether it's business or life or what I always try to look to other people, to get assistance in maybe an area that I need more work on.
Mhm.
People that I actually coach. There's some areas that I'm very strong in, It doesn't mean that I'm better than them. It just means in those certain areas, I'm a little bit stronger and I'm sharing that intellectual knowledge with them on how to get from where they are to where they want to go.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing out there is like coaching's great, and the biggest problem with coaching is if you're on the other side, it's that word, you need humility, the ability to ask for help. But a lot of people, sit in their ego or sit in their own stuff, and they don't want to ask for that, or they don't value certain things. Mm-hmm. I had talked to clients in the past where, they're saying, well, I don't want to pay for coaching. All right, but you'll stop at Starbucks twice a day, buy a pack of cigarettes, buy this and buy that. That stuff adds up, and it's probably more expensive than a session or two a week.
Yeah.
So people's priorities. And for me, a big thing why I left the executive world was alignment. For me, it's not monetary, it's being in alignment, and I do a lot of stuff with people that I work with where I say, hey, listen, what's most important to you as a person? What are your values? Right. And most people always say the same type of thing. It's like, family and, if they're religious, family, God, and such forth. And then they'll say what's important to them. And I'll say, okay, well, how much time do you spend there? And you make a list, and they look how lopsided that is, that they're spending more time in the things that aren't important to them than the things that are important to them. And most of the time you get like that aha moment.
Yeah.
Something needs to change. We have one life. I want to live it to the best of my ability, and I want to spend my days and my time doing the things that I'm passionate about, not the things that, I have to do. You don't have to do anything, but be happy.
Yeah. I love that. I love the list. That's fantastic. So for anybody that is looking for something different, right, or it just wants a little bit of insight on themselves, I'd suggest that take a minute, right, make that list of the things that you love, right, and the things that you do, and see how they correlate, because I do think a lot of us get lost in that. And as a society, right, we're not taught to be happy, quote unquote, in what we do. We're taught to work, right? Like you said, that's what you were taught. That's why you lived in your uniform. We're taught to constantly go, constantly work, constantly push ourselves. And because of that, we forget that huge part, people like to say it's a small part, but that huge part of happiness and being able to enjoy what you do. Everybody has rough days. That's something totally different. But if you're having more rough days than not, then something needs to change, like you said.
A lot of times, Catherine, you can talk to people, and I'll sit down, they'll say, well, I'm not doing too hot, or I'm unhappy. And they have great, from the outside looking in, great lives, right? Yeah. From the inside looking in, because of, but I'll say to them, well, why are you unhappy? And they can tell me I said, well, what makes you happy? Right. And they can tell me everything that doesn't make them happy. And I always say to them, I don't want to hear about what doesn't make you happy. I want to hear about what makes you happy. And then an example last week I did with somebody, after going through that process, and I'm asking them, well, they like to go to the beach. They like to walk their dog, or whatever else may be. And then I'll ask them, well, when's the last time that you went to the beach? They're like, oh, 2 months ago. Well, when's the last time that you did something else that you enjoyed that he named? 3 weeks ago. I go, how do you expect to be happy if what you just told me, what makes you happy, and you haven't done it or don't do it on a consistent basis?
Yeah.
It's like some of the times it's stuff that's staring us right in the face that we don't even see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. Now, let me take you back a second, because I'm interested to see when you were in that spot of kind of knowing that something needed to change, but not really sure. What do you feel like kind of got you over that hump that really kind of hit you like, no, I know I need to change, and I'm going to figure out a way to make a change? Because I feel like people do get stuck in that, whether it's business or personal, right? And then there has to be a choice, or we just keep sitting in that cycle of feeling sorry for ourselves, basically.
Yeah. I can talk about many different scenarios with that. I'll stick it to myself. For me, unfortunately, I had hit rock bottom. Rock bottom for me was landing in prison, losing everything, not grabbing the help whenever it was offered. I know better. So when I was in prison, I came to the conclusion, being who I was, having that athletic background, being who I was, my status in the community, I was always able to manipulate my way out of things or manipulate help or this or that. When I was sitting in prison after it was all said and done, nobody was talking to me. Nobody wanted much to do with me. I could not manipulate my way out of that place.
Mm.
So I finally gained some clarity, after being off some stuff and sitting with myself, because that's what prison did for me. It gave me the time I was unwilling to give myself.
Yeah.
And when I sat in there, it was like an aha moment of, being who I was and then waking up in a cell, looking up and going, how the hell did I get here? It was mind boggling to me. And it was very quick because a lot of my stuff was 1 year. It was just a 1 year out of my entire 47 years of my life.
Yeah.
Handed me there. And I made a commitment to myself. I started doing things that I typically didn't do. I started journaling. I started writing stuff down. I was forced to sit with myself, and I didn't like what had become, and getting released from there. That was the toughest part because now I couldn't get any job that I was ever associated with. I had to reinvent myself. I had to do some humbling type of things. And as I went forward, the biggest changing spot for me was when I moved down to Florida. I moved from Massachusetts to Florida in 2011, 2012, 2011. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have anything materialistic because I had lost everything and I was in debt. But for the first time in my life, I worked on myself. It's the first time I felt so whole. And the biggest changing part is, you're going to laugh, Catherine, but it's so true, is the first girl I ever dated in Florida, I ended up marrying, who I'm now married for 8 years.
Oh.
And it's a funny story. And I talk about it a little bit in my book because I didn't date for a year. I wanted to focus on myself. I did a lot of work on myself and I felt like I didn't have a lot to offer. You know what I mean? And when I started to feel whole and I started to date this beautiful woman, she did a lot of things that I have never done, nor would I have ever done before. Because, being that egotistical macho, that athlete, all that stuff, right? I had to squash that guy because that guy got me to where I was, right? So when I met her, she was into Reiki and meditation and yoga. And I'll be honest with you, I'm very blunt. At first, I did those things just because I wanted to be close to her and be a part of the world, right?
Makes sense.
But in saying that, yes, it's funny. But when I did those things and got out of my own way and put judgment down, it changed me.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed some of it and I started to heal through other stuff that I wasn't doing. And then, I actually became a children's yoga instructor. I was like, what? So after I went through that process, I owe a lot to my wife for opening up a lot of different modalities and a lot of different stuff that I never would have attempted and tried. And I took what I needed and I left what I didn't. And then NLP came into my world. And NLP changed everything for me. It improved my relationship with my wife. It improved my relationship with my kids. It improved my relationship with myself. And I get excited for people that, come in and you can use NLP for a lot of different things, including increasing your revenue, this and that. That's all nice, right? I love when people come in, they're like, I want to increase my revenue. I'm like, all right, yeah, sure. I know in the back of my head, the internal shifts that they're going to have during the process. So I get excited and they're kind of like looking at me like, oh, because they don't know yet. You know what I mean? So I get super excited about that stuff.
That's awesome. And I love that. So you touched on something that I feel like a lot of people miss. And in a society we are not taught. And that is being alone with yourself.
Yeah.
I know that myself, after being in an abusive relationship, I was very guilty of not being with myself, because I didn't want to deal with the emotions or what I had been through or anything that I had dealt with. And so it was easier for me to stay so busy with my kids, with my job, with going back to school and things like that, that I was able to avoid, right, dealing with those issues, dealing with those feelings, dealing with the whys that got me there and figuring out how I could get past it, right? And I think a lot of us do that in our personal life and in our business, right? We don't take time to sit with ourselves to really figure out what we have done, why we didn't like it, and then how we can make a difference or what can be done to change it in order to grow.
Right. You're right on with that. And a lot of my life, this thing's obviously that one bad year. Everyone's like, well, would you have changed it or you change it? I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't wish it on anybody, but I tell you what, I wouldn't change it because it made me into the person I am today.
Mm-hmm.
It really, my life is better today, through that growth and that experience than it was prior to even that bad year.
Yeah.
I feel fulfilled. Um, I make my own schedule. I try to make as big an impact as I can make, within the community, within the US. And to be honest with you, that's why I wrote my book. I wrote my book because I made it short enough where people would read it, because most
Mm-hmm.
people don't read books. I mean, entirely anyway. So it's not overwhelming, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very solution based. It's my GPS system on how, it's a fallen leader story. It's for the bankrupt professional. It's for the divorcee.
Yeah.
It's a comeback story, but it's also a GPS plan on how to get yourself from one point to another.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I do feel like that's the biggest fear with everyone is screwing up. But what people don't realize is those screw ups and those failures are actually what propel you forward if you learn how to use them in a positive light instead of focusing on all of the negatives that can come out of it.
Right. And my big thing is my big word is I love the word motivation, because I'm huge on motive. I love to be motivated. My wife, you could say motivated to her, doesn't really do much, but if you tell her inspire, she loves inspire,
Ah.
kind of similar, but verbiage. And I love quotes for me. And the one quote I saw, and I always say, and I love continue to say it, is somebody took the same situation that you're complaining about and they won with it. That's motivating to me,
Oh, yeah.
because we all have issues, we all have baggage, we all have stuff, right? It's like, and I might mess this line up, but it's like that quote, nothing's impossible. Like what was it, the 4 minute mile or 6 minute mile was thought to be impossible until it was
Yes.
broken. And then once it was broken 3 other times.
Yep.
So I love for people, especially, successful people, I go to masterminds to work on business and this and that, because I think it's great to form relationships so you don't repeat the mistakes that other people make and learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
I go, but I love hearing that. I don't like to sit there and someone tell me how glorious it's nice to hear, glorious their business is, how much money they make, what they're doing, yada. I want to hear their struggles.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think that when we're recovering loudly, not so much like in an addiction thing or this, but in any area of our life, when we're recovering loudly, whether it's from domestic violence, whether it's from addiction, whether it's from a divorce, whether it's from whatever it may be, when we're recovering loudly, we're helping those that are dying silently.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there needs to be more of us that are boisterous out there, but a lot of people don't like to come out and be vulnerable. I wrote this book to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I teach my courses to be vulnerable. I mean, because I think when you show vulnerability, you show authenticity.
Yeah.
Which is very important to me.
Yes, definitely. And I think it takes away that huge thought of judgment that we all go through, right? We all have such a fear of somebody else judging us in some form or fashion, that a lot of times is the reason why we don't have those conversations. I know for me in the very beginning, it was very hard for me to have those conversations, or at that time, admit was the word I used to use, admit that I had allowed myself to be in that kind of a situation. But what I did realize was there are so many people, like you're saying, that have been through so many things that feel the same way. And all they're looking for is for someone that can say, hey, I've been through that. I know how you feel, to give them that sense of peace. Right. And that could be the one thing that allows them to propel themselves forward. So I totally agree with you. I do think that we should be sharing the struggles and things more, just to bring it to light, not necessarily so that you can boast about it. Right. But is a way to show everyone that we are people. There is no such thing as perfect. And that's a societal issue that I think that we really have, that I talk about a lot on this podcast, is everybody is striving for this picture of perfection. But if you look around, nobody has it. Yeah. It's something that we've created. It's an illusion that everybody hides behind so that they don't have to be vulnerable.
Right. And you can always ask yourself, we do it all the time, and we do it a lot of our courses or one-on-one or whatever you may be doing, what's your idea of success? Everyone has a different idea of success.
Yes.
There might be that label of what people think, maybe, because he's got a big boat or a big house or anything like that. I know a lot of people don't care anything about that stuff. Mm-hmm. I can tell you, for me, success isn't, money or this and that. Success to me is freedom. And freedom to me means being able to do what I want when I want, especially when it comes to my family. I don't want to miss, the reason why I left the executive role. I don't want to miss birthday parties or holidays. My daughter turns 4 this weekend. I'm going to Orlando to, have tea with princesses. Do you know what I mean? And dinner with Santa. I'm stoked about that. But if I was in my prior job, that wouldn't have worked for me. And, they might have paid me a lot of money to do what I do. But at the end of the day, you can pay me anything in the world. If I'm out of alignment and I miss those times that I'm having with my children, there's nothing that can replace that,
Yeah, definitely agree with that. The alignment is a huge piece that a lot of people do not seem to find or focus on
they feel they're stuck. Most people I run into feel they're stuck because it's that overall that everyone, constantly complains. So it's a balance between work and family, work and life, and how to do it. You know what I mean? But it comes down to is looking at where your values are, what's important to you, because what's important to me may not be important to you. We are all different, and it's figuring out what that stuff is. And it's very easy to figure it out. Very easy. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it takes some searching.
Or having the right coach, I mean, to talk about where you are and showing you, tangible steps to get to where you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So before we end, I always, which you gave me an amazing quote. So I always ask for a quote or saying or something that you find that you go back to. So is there any other thing that you find saying to yourself or that you say to a lot of people that you feel like would help the listeners?
I keep going back to that one. That's my favorite quote of all, is somebody took the same situation that you're complaining about and they won with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that more than anything is to me is inspiring. It's motivating. And it also shows me, it gives me the description that somebody else has done it. So why can't I do it?
Yeah.
Check your excuses at the door, and let's get to work.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time, Joe. Do me a favor, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can connect with you, and where they can find your book, since it's coming out on Monday, which I'm super excited about.
So you can find us. We have online courses at obtainingmastery.com. We also have a wellness center. It's omcenterforwellness.com. My book launches on Monday. You can follow me on social media. It's Joe Kelley, EY, Keley. And it's going to be launched on Monday on Amazon. So I'm super stoked about that. We also have what's coming up January 13th to the 15th in Florida. we have we have maximize your mindset. So it's 2 days of working on vision board, goal setting, improving your communication, healthy lunches catered in. It's yoga, meditation. It's everything that has gotten me to where I am today popped into 2 days. And then on the third day, we have a VIP day that's at our wellness center where you get to try all the different stuff that we have, cryotherapy, lymphatic drainage suits, cryo slimming, you name it. So it's a big wellness 3 days that I'm super stoked for. But Badge Bars to Beyond be out on Monday. You can go to badgebarsbeyond.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Joe. I had such a pleasure talking with you.
Well,
and to everybody else, I hope you got some amazing takeaways. Be sure to like, share, comment, let us know what you think, and be sure to do something positive for someone else at least one time every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. So until next time, we'll see you then.
Hello again, and thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. If you've enjoyed this episode and it brought tons of value, we ask that you please share, like, and subscribe. Your support means the world to us and helps us to reach even more inspiring entrepreneurs who can benefit from these powerful conversations. If you haven't already, be sure to leave a review on iTunes, as this feedback is an amazing gift that fuels our growth and helps us to continually improve this podcast. Looking for an extra dose of inspiration and empowerment? Be sure to connect with me on social media. You can find me at The Lotus Effect Coach, where I share valuable resources and tips while sharing my own journey of being an entrepreneur. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching programs and services, be sure to check out my website at the-lotus-effect.com. Once again, thank you so much for being a part of Real Chat with Kat. Your presence and support makes all the difference. Remember, whether you find yourself in the depths of the mud or on the path of growth, we all have a unique journey. And just like the lotus, some of us start in the dirtiest of mud, yet as we rise and grow, we blossom into something beautiful, unique, and truly one of a kind. To all of my visionaries out there, keep rising and growing as you create your own Lotus Effect.